Microphone check, 1, 2, what is this? It's the 5'7" assassin in the podcast business. I am your host, Rohan Patra, the Rap Music Plug, at your service. The Rap Music Plug podcast presented by QLC TV is the remedy to the I don't have anything good to listen to problem. Through in-depth album and song reviews, as well as artist interviews and general rap commentary sprinkled in between on all of what the mainstream and underground rap scenes have to offer, this is your one-stop shop to knowing what to add to your queue, play next, or pop into your record player. Welcome to the show. What is up, family? I am so excited to have a very special guest on the show. He goes by the name of Iceberg Theory.
Yo, I stand with my feet planted as the universe expands. Simulation program, whole planet stolen land. Time was a river and the flow broke the dam. Isolate the sequence, the potency band, let it burn.
So he's a New Jersey rapper and producer who spent this past decade of the 2010s creating really interesting, mystical, philosophical infused rap music in a way that I genuinely have not heard before, which is why I find he stands out so much amongst the crowd. And he's been prolific as hell over this past year or so in particular, dropping countless albums with some of the underground's finest, and in particular August Fanon, who is the producer who produces a vast majority of his previous work over this past year, and it's been leading to fantastic results. So I'm really excited to have you on the show today.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate the coverage, man.
No worries.
Not a lot of people take the time to give it a lot of listens and really in-depth coverage. So I appreciate you taking the time out and speaking to me today, but just in general, all the coverage you've given me in the past. And, all that just definitely appreciated.
Yeah. Appreciate that, man. Appreciate that. I just want to spread the good word here because this is some really exciting music that, like, honestly, when I listened to you, it introduced me to so many different artists in this space of the underground that I knew some of it, I've heard some of it, I dabbled, but now I'm really starting to get into. Like, just yesterday, I was listening to the project you produced for Link Loan. The name it's escaping me. I'm bad with names sometimes, but it that was genuinely really interesting.
The Sorcerer of Vine Valley.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, shout out to Link. Yeah, we got another one too we're working on as well.
No, that's fantastic.
He didn't announce it yet, so hopefully I'm not ruining that surprise, I guess. But yeah, we're still working. Link's dope. And he's, super prolific too. He had a good 2020, and I think more people are gonna find out about him in 21 as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I wanted to kind of get us back in time a bit, and I wanted to know, how did you really start to listen to rap, fall in love with it? Like, how old were you, and how did that all unfold?
It was kind of just like teens, I guess. More mainstream stuff. It was kind of when 50 Cent was popular, I guess. That whole era, more or less. A lot of commercial stuff going on, the 2000s. And I liked that music at the time, and then it just made me dig even further. My cousin had given me the Illmatic CD for my birthday one year, and then at the time I didn't even really like it that much because I was just like, I thought the beats were boring, I guess, the first time I heard it, and then as I got a little bit more more acquainted to older hip hop and 90s sounds and stuff like that, I grew more in love with it, and then that kind of became the sound that I more or less worked in with myself. But yeah, at first, I kind of had just trained myself off more mainstream, shiny shit, I guess.
Right. Do you still kind of shy away from the mainstream music these days, or are you kind of more balanced now?
I don't really listen to any I mean, I don't really listen to much in general. So I specifically don't really listen to much. Not like I'm like, oh, I'm not going to listen to mainstream or something like that. But I just, there's not really many circumstances where I'm going to listen to it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not like I have like something against it, but it's just, I mostly listen to my friends' music.
Right.
There's so many, people in the underground that I'm working with that make good stuff that, if I'm turning on anyone's stuff, it's probably going to be theirs.
Yeah, and I also find this year, or I guess last year, really showed like there's a difference between music that's like I'll listen to in any circumstance or listen to by myself alone or kind of uh in a more calm kind of mind state. Whereas there's a lot of music that I may have listened to much more in previous years that were more circumstantial. It's like, oh, I'm at a bar, I'm with a bunch of friends and we're drinking and something like that. It really shows the
Yeah,
vast.
definitely being in solitude, being just alone and shit, definitely takes, or just like, and in your house more. You know what I mean? Like if
Mhm.
you're just home more, definitely certain types of music I'm not going to play as much. I definitely go for, end up going for the more like contemplative
Mhm.
sort of stuff, just because a lot of more hard hitting stuff. Not that I won't listen to it at home, but it just doesn't really. There's some music, like you said, it's good for different circumstances, and a lot of shit's good for like driving. Like if you're driving, I might listen to a different kind of music. Something that gets you going. If you're going, going into the world doing shit. You're like, okay, I need something that's gonna like, get me in that mindset, get me like, I don't know, pumped up or whatever. But
Right.
if you're just, whatever, if you're kind of sitting on your couch, there's another kind of music that you're gonna listen to, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I totally feel that. I feel like you actually picked a pretty good year to really make a splash. Like, I mean, sad to say, but lots of people were at home, and I feel like that your kind of brand of music fit very well for the times. Not just the fact that
Yeah,
we're
just
alone, but just the times,
headphone
what's
shit.
going on.
Yeah, yeah, definitely as far as kind of apocalyptic scenarios and shit. Yeah, that definitely it has people thinking in that way a little bit more, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah,
just and
yeah.
then just headphone more contemplative music. It definitely is stuff I generally work on more. It's not music that you're gonna play at a party or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, totally, and I think, it's actually funny when I think it was at least where I'm from in Ottawa, in Canada, our real big kinda shift between the pandemic was the 2nd week of March, about March, like, 13th, 16th, it's right around my birthday, I remember that, and I know
Mm-hmm.
Jay Electronica dropped his album, Written Testimony, right on that Friday as kinda everything was, like, going to shit, everybody was freaking out, like, "What the hell is happening? What's happening in this world?" It made that album fit so much better, and I mean, I like it, I think, more than most. I don't think it was, like, maybe the best thing he could have made, but I liked it more than most, and just the fact of music really hits so much different given, like, what I was doing at the time, and I was like I really connected to, like, this yeah, apocalyptic, but just like world decay kind of feeling. I was like, yeah, it really is. It really is. We really are in trouble. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
what
no, I could feel that. Yeah, a lot of it is circumstantial as far as what hits you and what and what doesn't. Like, yeah, because a lot of your personal feelings and thoughts and stuff get intertwined with the music. So sometimes it's not even the quality. It can be the quality of the music, obviously. And I'm not even speaking about the J electronica in general, but like it's more just in
yeah.
anything like whatever you're going through at the time. If something like speaks to you, then that could end up being your favorite project of that artist or something like that. So I feel like that happens all the time where because there's certain memories that's associated with something, it gets it gets higher up on your list, or because you had just a certain relationship with that music during a tough time, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And so what really kind of like spoke to you in terms of deciding that you wanted to actually rap? Like you actually wanted to decide to put pen to paper and start rapping versus just being a listener. What was the shift?
I mean, I've been doing it so long that it's hard to even say. I mean, I think I always wrote poetry, so the form, it made sense to me as far as working on it. But I mean, I've pretty much done it since I was, 13, 14, something like that. So it's been something I've been doing longer than I haven't been doing, I guess. So it's hard to say exactly what even started it, but yeah, I've been, yeah, probably that's probably like if you add like the hours that I spent doing anything, I probably spent more time, writing reps than damn near anything else in my life. So at
What
this
do you do?
point,
What else do you do in your kind of like spare time when you're not rapping, producing, writing?
I mean, work obviously, I guess it's work, but besides work, I also do other writing. Um, this this year, I'm working on worked on a screenplay, a TV series that a friend of mine are trying to get picked up,
Oh, nice.
and hopefully some funding for. So I've been spending a lot of time doing that. I mean, if you think of, I've tweeted a little bit about it, but it's like if you think like there's a lot of like vultures and fucking just people like making their living off of like desperate artists and like
Yeah.
music, like just seeing like what's out there in like the film industry is like even crazier. I mean, I don't know, maybe just because I'm trying to sell shit. I mean, I'm sure if I was trying to become more of a mainstream artist, I think the thing about that though is that you know the barrier of entry in making music, at least like getting something like, I wouldn't say I'm a professional artist by any stretch of the imagination as far as, the amount I sell and the amount of people that listen to me. But, I can make something that sounds, to my ears at least, professional and,
Oh, definitely.
as good as anything else. And it's like, I could do that. Like I got a fucking computer, microphone, that I've had since I started rhyming like 10 years ago, since I started recording. So, GarageBand, like I'm recording on GarageBand, August mixes it, so it's like the barrier of entry to do that is like pretty low, at least like technology wise. But like to film like a TV series and shit like that, there's just a lot more that goes into it. So it makes it even more difficult to get into. I mean, unless you're really going to go like completely independent and just try to film stuff yourself. But even in that case, then there's actors and stuff,
Yeah.
actors, cinematographers, editors. I mean, just like the cost of doing that on your own is you really need some significant backing to go anywhere, to even get a product that may or may not do well.
Right. Yeah. I feel like you're way more dependent.
It's definitely more difficult.
Yeah, you're way more dependent on other people, and the gatekeeper idea in music is 100% true. But yeah, you're right. In film, it's just on another level. Even if it like studio time, it's not like, oh, I can just, like you said, record in my bedroom and just put something out that sounds very good and very
and even
professional.
studio time, at least you're paying for the studio. It's like, okay, so I'm paying, but I'm paying for a specific thing. You know what I mean? But like with the filming, it's like, you need the camera shit, you need there's just so many people, the sound person, the person who's going to hold the boom mic, the person who's I can't even name all of them.
Right.
Like when you just look at a credits, like look how many people are even on something that's like seemingly simple and pretty basic. Like there's a lot of people in the mix.
No, I was saying like I find also with the movies, it's and just film and TV, it's that it's like I notice, at least as me, is like I'm not everybody, but I'll speak for myself, is that I definitely care way more about the quality of either like the acting or quality of the cinematography. I notice it so much more and it impacts my enjoyment so much more than the quality, quote unquote, of the mix, quality of the vocals in terms of like how it sounds aesthetically. Like a lo-fi kind of sloppily made song can be amazing in music. I find like that doesn't really go both ways when it comes to cinematography and film for me, because I find like if it is something that's very low budget, it really needs to be exceptional in terms of quality of the story and things like that for me to enjoy. But music, like I can listen to like something completely unmixed, unmastered, and like thoroughly enjoy it as much as something that's completely like billions of dollars put behind it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point too. That I don't know. I need to, admittedly, I need to look at more like really low budget stuff and like, I don't know if I've been seeing too much, like, because I also haven't had, like, I just got internet like a few months ago just at my house. So it's not like I was watching like many movies in general, but I would be curious to see like some super low budget shit and see what that, is like. Like, I mean, I guess maybe the closest you could find is like some web series. Some web series might be, some really super simple stuff that might be enjoyable. But even then, you want to have at least some production value. So
Right.
yeah, from a general point of view, I definitely would agree with what you're saying. From my own experience. But yeah, so I'm working on that, and then also I've been working on a book, like a novel. So I've been, so especially when the pandemic first hit and my work had shut down for a little while. That's what I was just, recording. I would like spend half the day working on like recording, half the day, writing my book, and then like somehow I had another half to like work on the screenplay stuff. So that was like probably the most productive time of my life. I feel like, ironically, when work was shut down for a couple months, because I mean, I really had like the space creatively to just work nonstop at stuff. Like it was really like from when I like got up to when I went to bed. It really was just going on. And then the different projects helped because once I got tired of doing one thing, the other ones were different enough that I could kind of pick that up where I left off. Mm-hmm. And it didn't feel like I was like working myself too hard because it was moving into a different venue or something like that, medium, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the diversity kind of adds to the kind of lessens the weight if you're just doing one thing time and time
again. Now it's when you don't have the time though. It's now that work is busier. It's definitely tougher though, and it's leaving me a little bit feeling like some stuff might need to be put on the back burner for a while because it's hard to balance all three and also work. So that makes it more difficult for sure.
And so like how do you balance like all of that stuff? Like what do you do? Because like one of the kind of things I was also very intrigued when in preparation of speaking with you is that your music and what you say in your music, it's all very kind of like there's a lot of deep philosophical explorations occurring, a lot of talk about spirituality, being grounded, and you come off like not like the typical rapper in the sense that even when you brag, I find it's in such a unique way where it's still like it still fits into the narrative and the kind of themes that you're rapping. So are you actually this kind of truly this mindful, grounded person at heart, or is this just like an artistic expression that you just like exploring in your music?
I mean, I think I'd like to be. I mean, I've definitely had times in my life where I'm more contemplative and monastic than others. I'd say like for a while I was living at a retreat center. After college, I was actually thinking of becoming a monk. Oh. And it did, for more because of like religious reasons, it didn't end up working out. But I still kind of, am attracted to that lifestyle. Like, with my music, like there's a lot of different religions that I'm referencing, mm-hmm. and that I could kind of see the value in each of them. So then when I was, I'd read a lot of this guy, Thomas Merton. He's a famous Cistercian monk, or Trappist monk. And I guess Trappists are a form of Cistercians. But so I was reading a lot of him, and he was super, open to interfaith dialogue and all that kind of thing. So, reading him, he was very open-minded and very, non-dogmatic, I guess. But then when I tried to get into the actual monastic order, it was, I found, which, something I probably should have realized out of the gate that, it was, I mean, you really had to be like a hardline Catholic mm-hmm. in order to get into that sort of lifestyle and to really, really appreciate it. Cause, the novice master or whatever, he's just like, oh, are you a Catholic? And I'm like, no, and then he's like, oh, well, you should probably read like these, apologetics. And then he starts showing me that. And it's like, talking about shit like the Pope being infallible and, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm just like, oh, I'm coming from reading like St. John of the Cross and, all this like mysticism in the Catholic tradition. And, that stuff I could all get behind because when you look at, mystical writings in all different religions, they're closer to one another than they're not, I guess.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
If you look at like St. John of the Cross, like he could easily be like, match up with like a Buddhist writer or something like that. Like obviously like some of the specifics are going to be different, but, some of the ideas being presented are similar, especially like a Meister Eckhart. Like his stuff has like a very like a Zen-like sort of quality to it. So that was all on my mind. And then to see, like, to be talking about, like, oh, so the Pope's infallible, like, okay, great. You know what I mean? It was something that it didn't really seem like I was going to fit into that lifestyle. So then after that, I went to this ecumenical retreat center, and I was a chef there and a kitchen manager for about a year. So during that time, that's when I made Philo Kalia with Tokyo Cigar. So he sent me all the beats. And while I was at the retreat center, I was staying, not the entire time, but when I had any time off, they had a hermitage on their grounds. So I stayed in the hermitage and just, worked a lot on that. And that time I was definitely, meditating more, praying more, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So I mean, there definitely is an element of fantasy in the whole thing as well. I mean, I'm a big fantasy reader, so that's definitely an element of it too. So I try to take that, the best of, my own experiences, and then mix that just with the craziest shit I could think of. So there definitely is, both of those elements. I mean, I don't know if I actually was, some supreme being fucking, millennia ago or something like that. I mean, I'd like to think so, I guess, but there definitely is an element of, the fantastic and all that. But when you look at it, to me, just the religion and, like, some of the stories and legends and myths and all that, like, there's modern day fantasy writing, like, comes from that to a degree, and all of that's pulling from that same source, and at least the best of it. I mean, maybe not some really shitty fantasy. It's just kind of coming from kind of copying other shit, but more unique stuff and more stuff that's really archetypal and fundamental. I feel like that does pull from the same sort of well that a lot of religious texts do. So that's more or less what I'm trying to capture in the writing.
Right. Yeah. I think you capture that really well. And I can speak for someone who, I wouldn't consider myself an atheist because I don't claim to know either way, but I do find myself to be quite agnostic, mainly because, like, I definitely don't have the level of understanding of the religious, various religions that you do. But one thing that I wanted to, and I always kind of struggle with, is that I get this feeling, and maybe it's an incorrect one, and I want to know your thoughts on it, that I get this feeling that people think that your morals are derived from a religious belief, and they're not derived from just, I don't know, experience, who you're around, your upbringing, your surroundings. And I find, like, it's perfectly okay and expected and reasonable to be a moral person who does not have a religious background. So, like, what do you feel like religion is something that is really not maybe concretely necessary to have some kind of morals, but, like, what do you think about that whole thing?
I mean, that's a tough thing to really. I mean, a lot of people are going to think vastly different things in those. I would kind of go into a little bit into the agnostic camp in that regard myself. One thought I might have is that, to me, the benefit of religion isn't really anything particularly moralistic, but more in terms of connecting you to, some sort of source, and opening you up to that kind of, whether it's, you could call it unknowing, mystical experience. I mean, every religion is going to have some sort of different way of conceptualizing it, but to me, that lived experience, that really, that's just something that affects you, I guess, and changes you. To me, that's more valuable and more my interest in religion than anything particularly moralistic, because, based on the history of religion, it's clear that, any morals that are supposedly being followed are just as easily broken when when it suits, a certain sect or whatever, right? So, it's like, oh, you shouldn't kill, and then, oh, we'll go on a crusade or something to that effect, or let's expel all the Jews from Spain. So, so clearly, where's the moral? Is that something that was moral? Like, I don't know. Like, probably not. So, the Inquisition, I mean, you could go back,
Right.
a
Yeah.
millennia, and you'll be talking about all the religious wars and persecutions and shit like that. So the idea that religion somehow has a monopoly on morals, I probably wouldn't agree with. But I would say that I think your morals do somehow change when you have some more of a connection to whatever, however you want to conceptualize God,
Right.
source,
Yeah.
however you think of that. I do think that there's a certain level of awareness and awakeness, I guess, that then influences how you act with other people and how you act in the world. So to me, that's really the benefit. But how much of that actually gets focused on in everyday religion, I'd say, it's pretty minimal. Like, I don't know, maybe I haven't been involved really in too much organized religion, but from what I've seen, most basic stuff really isn't going to be focusing too much on that. And it's going to be because, especially with modern life, it's tough to develop that connection.
Yeah, and that I think you bring up a good point there because I find that, yeah, like the way you describe it, I think is much more in tune with what I would kind of subscribe to, which is that it's not really about the actual specific religion or any religion. It's about kind of like the exploration and that journey to find connection because like right now we live in a society that's just like it's just corroded with all this toxicity of materialism and like a morally devoid ruling class that just keeps proving that like constantly every single day in myriad of ways we don't need to get into. But I do think that that idea of kind of trying to get in touch with spirituality could kind of help a lot of us because like I feel this personally where I feel sometimes I just feel so apathetic and like just okay or not okay, but just kind of like put into submission that like this is how like where the world is going and that's just gonna be how it's gonna be. I have this kind of metaphor I have in my mind right now where it's like I feel like given like technology, social media, kind of like the information age we're in, it's like everybody's head and eyes are in like and attention is just in 1,000 different places, but our feet are glued to the ground in one place where it's like we're simultaneously so aware of like 100 different things, but we don't do anything about it. Because I feel like
Right.
it's just such a
Mhm.
we're just like we feel like so disconnected with it at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, especially with Twitter and just social media and whatever. I mean, it's easy to see just all of the ills in the world and give one's opinion on all of those things, which is that has its place, sure, but it definitely doesn't take the place of like concrete political action.
Mhm.
So it definitely gives you the feeling that there's not much you could definitely get into a kind of void, I guess, with that shit where you're just like, there's really not much I could do. I'm just going to see all of these things, and yeah, eventually you kind of become numb to them, I guess.
Mhm. Do you find you're like an optimistic person or are you jaded when it comes to like I guess being generically or generally, sorry, hopeful for like the future? Are you one of those people that think like things are just going to continue getting worse, or do you feel like like the humankind or whatever is going to like right the ship at some point in the future?
Oh, that's a tough. I mean, I think the best way of putting it is like I was watching it. I'm a big fan of the Moderate Rebels YouTube channel. Max Blumenthal, that's his channel. He's like a journalist, and him and Ben Norton. I want to say, yeah, I think it's Ben Norton. Um, and they were I forget the name of the guy they were interviewing, but they were kind of talking about the future of America and the future of just yeah, just generally America, and obviously that plays into the fate of the world, I guess, to a degree because America's involved in so many different countries, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they were I think Ben Norton was saying how I forget who said it, but one of them said they were pretty jaded and just feeling like there was no good that could possibly come out of the situation. And I on many levels I do feel that, but the other person they were interviewing said something to the effect of you kind of have to have a revolutionary optimism and believe in just the people and just people in general.
Mhm.
Otherwise, because you kind of like it's a luxury to not have that optimism in a sense.
Yeah.
Like if you really want to make a change, or in any degree in your life and whatever, you have to believe that it, like even on a very small scale, you have to believe that you can do that and that it's possible. So I feel like having like both of those things, like as far as just like where I see the ship going, like, yeah, I mean, I definitely don't have, we're definitely hitting the glacier, so to speak. Like it's ship going down. But, I do, have faith in individual, people and people as a whole that, they could only take so much, or, I don't know exactly what I have faith that the result will be or something, but, I do have faith that that people, desire something greater, and, maybe something better can come out of that. I don't know. But, I would like to think that.
All right. Yeah. I think that idea of revolutionary optimism, that's actually, I swear I may have heard that in the last like week or so. I don't know if I was talking with like my therapist or something about that, but that idea that's a really powerful statement. Revolutionary optimism. That's good.
Yeah,
And I feel
I could try to find. I'll try to find the the interview was pretty good in a lot of ways, but that was one thing.
Send it over after. Like, I'd love to check it out.
On the Sabbath, the day's end, how you claiming you want peace, but don't act with the same intent. There's allies and enemies, neighbors and friends. Rather have a comrade in the struggle, we breaking bread.
Your music just kind of like, it really like sparks so many like different thoughts in my mind. Like you have this one skit that you have on, I think it's Creation Nihilio. I don't know how to say any of these names. Yeah, but where you're like, where the guy's speaking about entropy, and which is, just for the listener here, it's the measure of organization, or like basically the degree of randomness, or the concept of randomness. And what I took from that skit, which really like never even heard this in my life until listening to that song, which is great, is that basically the guy was saying that there's kind of a flaw in the whole Big Bang Theory idea, in that it goes against the second law of thermodynamics, in that randomness should be decreasing if we move back in time, yet there was this big giant event of giant random nature occurring so many years ago in the Big Bang Theory. And I don't know if I even butchered that, but if I was on the correct,
I think, I'm, this is not my strong suit of knowledge, really. It's a little bit of a gap I need to, work on. But I did want to have something scientific in the album.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking a lot about just the different yugas and the different cycles of time and all that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I kind of was looking for different, more of, because there was also a Jewish guy that I had initially on Third Temple Period. I ended up taking it out just because I felt like I kind of had too many skits, or just at least like I felt like it was enough, mm-hmm. kind of in that regard. But he was just talking about like the days of creation, and how he in the Jewish thing, we're kind of nearing the last day of creation, and the Sabbath, where there will be some kind of crazy war and this, that, and the other thing. So to me, that kind of matched with what he was talking about, with the Kali Yuga, the idea that it's that's the time of spiritual degradation that then, will morph into something else. But that's like the lowest point of humanity. And then to get to something mm-hmm. better, you need to go through this lowest point. So in my view, I just kind of view things in a more cyclical way, because even when you look at nature, you look at, the seasons, the life and death of crops, like all these different things, where it's one thing, like, I don't know. To me, the linear view of time is like, it makes sense. Like that does exist, but then what does that then lead to? Right. Like, what is it like? Okay. Like even in Judaism, okay, like there will be this big end. God Magog will come and, fuck some shit up and destroy shit till only the elect are left, like whatever the case may be. But then, then what comes after that? Right. Yeah. And then like, does the whole thing not repeat? Like, or is that just then there's like literally an end of time? Like, I don't fucking know. Maybe there is, but to me, the whole cyclical element, of Hinduism does make more sense in that, the Kali Yuga, and then, then after that age of darkness, then something like a spring can come. But, even the spring is fighting against the winter. So even if, as the Kali Yuga is going into the Dwapara Yuga, where things are getting a little more spiritual, right? And it's not a golden age, but it's like, kind of the beginning of spring, where you're getting a little more sun, and the sun is fighting against the cold, or, something mm-hmm. to that effect. So I wanted something scientific in the album to that kind of captures that. And that was the idea of like our infinity being then the beginning of somebody else's Big Bang. Like that was kind of the part that I was really interested in, and would like to study more of that, because I feel like those two views definitely kind of fit, and especially in the Hindu concept of like a day of Brahma being like, I think like 4.32 or something like that, billion solar years, right? And that's like one day, and then there's like a night of Brahma. So it's like, to me, like, okay, so a day and then a night, like infinity, Big Bang, like, it all kind of, not to say it just all fits together and it's a neat picture of what everything is, but that is some scientific evidence that does, it does make some nice connections to that. So that was the purpose in putting that skit in there, and what I was trying to get across. But
I feel that.
And I definitely, from a scientific perspective, I definitely don't have the real whole story, I guess. But I gotta read up on that more.
That's true. You still have like a very good understanding. Like that definitely taught me a lot just in that one sense. As I I want to transition to more of like the concrete music talk. There's so much I want to talk about still. Just want to point out that you're mentioning like Kali Yuga, and obviously that's mentioned a lot on the album Dispatches. From the Kali Yuga. You should check out a show, Sacred Games. It's a Hindi show actually, but it's one of like the best shows I've seen in my lifetime, and it's getting like crazy reviews. But it's cinematography, just on that sense. It's like one of the most high budget shows I've seen. Like it has a very A-list kind of Bollywood actor, but this is like incredibly dark show. Like there's no dancing, there's no singing numbers, but it explores like, I don't want to give it away, but it's a very religious kind of like narrative. It's based on a book. There's 2 seasons, and it's like genuinely an incredible show cinematography way. But it one of the big parts of the show is based on like a guru and like a thing he's trying to do related to the idea of Kali Yuga. Like I don't want to spoil anything more, but quite a good show to check out. I'll send you the link after this.
That's crazy. I definitely gotta watch that.
Yeah, it's great.
Time for more serious, cherish a rare laugh. I've been about a Benedictines, but I've been there and back. Burning like sands till its image is glass. Let God give to my work what my penmanship lack.
One thing I've been always thinking about, as soon as I kind of stumbled upon your music, your name, Iceberg Theory, which is, for those that don't know, it's a reference to the Hemingway writing style of explicitly communicating only part of the kind of overall meaning and leaving the rest for the reader, or the listener in this case, to interpret for themselves. So I want to know, like, do you actively keep this approach in your mind when you write your bars, or is it just kind of a dope name that you wanted to use, or do you like actually try to adhere to that consciously when you write?
I think at this point it's a little bit second nature, I guess. Like it's just kind of what the writing style is rather than something I'm doing consciously. It's funny because I think I spoke about this a little bit with Dano from Free Music Empire, and about like certain lines and certain stuff, and it's like I don't want to break down every, like, to me, to break down a line, like I could do it, like in certain lines like are even better than I would like explain, I guess, like there's more to it than I would even, I'm just like, that was because he was asking me a few, and I'm like, yeah, that's the line, you know what I mean? But it's, there definitely is more there, because just in language there's so many different resonances, and even the idea of the iceberg theory, like, I mean, it's just to translate that to music, it's a different game, because the way he was doing it was to write, very journalistically and just very basically, like all of his, writing was super straightforward. I mean, maybe not all of it, but like it was in a sense pretty like straightforward description wise, and just kind of giving you what's happening without telling you much about how the characters are feeling and the kind of the, their feelings underneath the story. But like you still got those elements. So then when he ends something and he just has like, when he has like that an end line, it's just like it ties up everything so nicely, because it's like all of all of the resonances and all of the things that weren't like really explicitly stated, like all are with you in a sense. To me, to put that in music, to put that in music, my writing style definitely isn't exactly that, because some of the, there's more references, it's more stream of consciousness, it's more all of those kind of things. but I would say that, yeah, a lot of the language has multiple meanings. Not everything. Some things I'm just saying it. I'm saying some things I'm saying, and they're just pretty straightforward. But just because then also the iceberg theory, I feel like is also something that gets looked at in a Freudian way as well. So in a sense, like where we have this unconscious, and like anything you're saying is that a representation of that unconscious. So in a sense, like whether you would even want to or not, like there's going to be more in your writing, especially when you do it in a stream of consciousness way that's tapping into that, tapping into that hidden part of your mind. Then you're going to get extra resonances and meanings and connections, So it's kind of like you can't help but write in the iceberg theory in a sense when you write in a certain style.
Yeah.
And when you're accessing that part of your mind. So yeah, sometimes it's more conscious than others. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, I really want like a double, triple entendre, whatever the case may be. And other times it's just, like, let me just try to say something pretty straightforward, and maybe it hits someone else in another way that I didn't even think of.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, that's kind of what I expected. I would be surprised, honestly, if you were like consciously thinking, because at this point you've made so much music over your career, you've written so much, as you mentioned, with poetry and all that. Like I feel like at this point it's such a second nature for you. But it does lead to why, like, honestly, your music is like the definition of replay value, because it is like, it just demands you listen to it again just by the nature of how it's made. So that definitely leads it to being very interesting. That's why I always like really, really high on a lot of the output you've put out recently, especially.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I definitely want to have, stuff that, I mean, that's like the best compliment I could get, because, I definitely don't want to make something that,
like, it's disposable
once you play,
and things like that. Yeah.
you get everything you can get out of it. So
yeah,
me,
totally.
If someone could revisit it and be like, yeah, a year later, and be like, oh man, let me look up that reference, see what that is. Let me do some research of my own, or some line hits you in a different way. Like, to me, that's Kaz music does that all the time for me. Like, I'll be listening to his album like a year later, and I'll be like,
oh yeah, cause
you
Descendants of Cain. Like, I heard it. I mean, I listened to it like maybe a month ago, like a lot again after it kind of had fell out of my rotation, and yeah, it just hit so much differently. I was like, oh my god, I didn't catch these lines. Like, now I understand this song completely differently. So I totally feel that. On to your actual, like, your latest album here, Dispatches from the Kali Yuga. From what I gather from like some of your like discussion with you, and just kind of like the feeling overall based on like the reception I've seen online from the work, is it feels like it's like a real culmination of your work so far with August, and feels like your biggest quote unquote album yet. Like, so what do you think differentiates this album, Dispatches from the Kali Yuga, from your previous work?
I mean, it's kind of going on the same formula, more or less. I mean, there are a couple songs in there that are a little bit older, so we definitely like the one with Sketch, that one which he fucking killed.
Oh yeah,
that one was ridiculous, But that one was like, that was one of the first songs me and August like recorded like years ago, so that we were like waiting for the right album to put on. So there were a couple of those, but generally, it kind of was just working. I mean, it kind of was the same process, but I think just over the time I had, gotten better. I think I think we're just, going harder than we did when we first started making music. So I think, just by that natural progression, and then that mixed with, I think, just the concept of the album itself. Like the other albums do, I think they each have like their own concept that, they're all, I mean, I love them all to a degree, but I think that the Dispatches from the Kali Yuga, especially a couple listeners had, mentioned that, because, if we're actually in the Kali Yuga, I feel like that's just that there's like a certain urgency to it, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Maybe some of the other albums, didn't have quite to the degree. It's also an angrier album, I guess. So maybe when you have that it's a little more passionate, which maybe brought more people on.
Yeah, no, I feel that. I actually think the urgency is a good word, and I think it's actually not like, I did feel I guess, passion or anger at times was more pronounced on this album. But I also find, especially towards the end of the project, there was more kind of like climax like moments. There was more like beautiful, like it felt more of like an ebb and flow emotionally than I think
Mhm.
I think some of your previous work had, because because of that urgency. It felt like more immediate and like this is important kind of feeling I get. And yeah, again, it just, once again, it fits so nicely with kind of the actual real world. So I think it hits so much different.
And the guests. I can't
Yeah,
leave
yeah,
out
and the
the
guest,
guests
the
too. I mean,
dispatch
it's
is
just
part of it. Yeah.
like just yeah, because there were so many different people contributing, and that also, because I was kind of, I'd written so much, I was just like, you know what, like and I wanted to reach out to some people for features and working with them. So I was kind of like, okay, let me focus on, like, if I'm gonna do a verse, let me focus on just doing one really good verse and let someone else do like another really good verse, rather than being like, okay, either let me make it really short or let me just then do a second verse and then have to write even more. I was kind
Mhm.
of just like, all right, you know what, I want to write, I want to rhyme, but like, Jesus, I kind of don't want to rap like, like three full verses on every track or whatever.
Right.
So that by getting other people and allowing them to shine, I think that's obviously, a strong. I mean, a lot of the albums do have great guests, but this album definitely has the most
Yeah.
out of anyone. And I've also always liked, being in a group element, like me and Tokyo Cigar. That's how we came up, like, Tokyo's been doing it longer than I have, but at least how I came up with him when in the plexiglass fountain. Like, that was our first, group together.
Mhm.
And when we did that, so that was my first introduction. I mean, I'd rhymed before too, but that's how we kind of came up, like, just rhyming as a group, going off of one another and going off of someone else's energy. So I always like that element. Like, obviously, Wu-Tang is like a huge influence. So the fact that, you could have like a Raekwon album and like Ghostface's, on it all
Yeah.
the time. Like, I love that sort of element.
Mhm.
So the fact that now, more people were willing to work and wanting to be a part of it, I wanted to take advantage of that and, be able to work with all the people I've always wanted to work with. And, that I definitely got a lot of collaborations that I'm happy I got to do.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think that's one of the definitely what differentiates that album just from the construction is the features, and that it led me to definitely check out so many of these artists. Some of them, again, like I was a familiar with, but I didn't really listen to them that closely. So it was a real good starting point for anybody trying to enter into this world of rap here.
Yeah,
But
I hope that's the case. I hope a lot. I hope, because
yeah,
everyone
definitely
I got
was.
on the album, I feel is, more than worthy of checking out on their own. So I mean, I
Mhm.
hope if anyone gets to check them out through that, I will. I'll be very happy about that.
I wrote this shit in a power outage with flashlights. Snow brought down the lines in the world that was masked white. Throwing logs in the fire, pray it lasts for the night. Outside, I could hear the wind whisper my last rites.
One of the things we were remiss to not mention and discuss a bit, because I'm so curious about this part, is that your biggest collaborator, your most frequent, August Fanon, the great producer, who's, for those unaware,
Yeah.
has some just stellar credits to his name. Particularly, I really got familiar with him in his work with Makami in his famed 2017 run, where he dropped so many projects with August, and they were all just fantastic. But as well as his work with Billy Woods, Elucid, and now Ice. So, how did you guys first develop your relationship?
We started working on Twitter, like, well, just from Twitter, we linked about, probably like 4 years ago now, something to that effect, 4 or 5 years. And yeah, we do, August was willing to give me a chance on, working. And he, I guess he saw something in me. I
Mhm.
don't think I was quite as polished during that time, but, he definitely saw some potential and, was willing to work. So, I'll always appreciate him immensely for that, because, not many superstar legendary producers are going to, take the chance on a virtually unknown artist. So to me, that was tremendous. And yeah, then we've just been pretty much working ever since.
Yeah, and like, how do you guys approach an album together? do you find you're like co-creating the lyrical vision, or is it one of those things where you kind of have that and then August gonna you speak with him, discuss, and then he takes that and creates the soundtrack to it, or is it more of like a fluid situation?
Um, Generally, we'll discuss. I mean, we discuss stuff outside of music that can end up influencing the album. But generally, he sends just a shitload of beats. He's always working, so he'll constantly send new folders of beats that he's working on, and then to a number of his collaborators. So once you're on the list, then I'm when he was especially when the pandemic started, he was going like absolutely bonkers.
Yeah. Yeah, man, he has so much
Like
projects
some days
now.
it'd be like in the morning I get like a thing of 10 beats, and then it'd be like right to some of those, and then by the evening I'm getting like another 10. So so some days were like that, which are just incredible, and all of them are just like stuff I would want to rap to, like and that so anyway. Yeah, so we were working like that. So generally, he lets me do what my thing. I approach songs pretty. I have my way of approaching songs, and he has his way of approaching beats. So, and he just is so prolific that he provides an array of soundscapes that then I can just pick what will influence the ultimate vision.
Yeah, and speaking of like prolific, both of you really are prolific. So this leads me to just ask. I always have this kind of thoughts going on in my mind, and sometimes I have different conclusions to it. I think it vastly depends on the artist, but given the fact that you've released so many projects at once, or not at once, but very close together, what do you say to those people that think you're releasing too much music, or do you just pay that no mind? Like, what is your approach on like spacing out music, or just kind of creating and delivering and dropping the music as it comes out?
I think, I mean, I think in this particular year, or last year in 2020, I had a very particular vision in mind as far as just dropping as much as possible. One, because I had the time and mental space to do it, but then also just to get a little more awareness, which at the beginning of the year I definitely didn't have. So not to say that so many people recognize me now, but we definitely had somewhat of a pretty powerful uptick as far as the amount of people and the quality of listener that's paying attention. So I think that both of those that element did help of doing that. As far as the quantity of the music, I would say to me it depends on is it quality? Does each one bring something new to the table? To a degree, if you're not really a fan of what I'm doing, or even if you are, maybe you'd say it's too much. I don't know. I mean, for some people, I know every time I drop, they're going to get each album and they're happy I dropped it, as long as it's good. So if until they start telling me that, yeah, you're this isn't bringing anything new to the table, I've already heard this, whatever, then I don't see any reason to, do less. I mean, now I feel like doing less is a little bit of a luxury, and now I maybe would like to, now that maybe devote some time to other pursuits, like I mentioned with the TV and my novel and stuff like that. And I hopefully I have enough of a following that if I don't drop something like every single month, when I do drop, people will be like, oh yeah, I've been waiting on that. But like in the beginning, totally. Before the run, that there were very few people who would be really ultimately waiting on that eventual album. So I think that from that perspective, that's kind of what I had to do to get to. I mean, not to say I couldn't have done it better. Like as far as like my actual releasing the shit, like I talked to people about it sometime when they're like talking about their rollouts, and this especially came up with when me and Scorsese, rest in peace, man. We're talking about our album, and the way he worked on his rollouts were so much more intentional than mine. Like me and August would be like, okay, like we got the mixes, this is pretty much good. I got the cover, like okay, like maybe let's drop it this day. Like sometimes it's like we're doing it the same day. Like I got the mixes and then drop. Like as soon as we're ready, and just like super off the cuff, I guess.
Yeah, but I would say that it felt different with Dispatches. And the reason we like, I think the first time we actually spoke, other than like replies or something, was I think because you put a call out, like you made it a point that you wanted to up your kind of marketing promotion game, I guess you could say, with
Yeah.
dispatches. And I think that was a good call because it felt like something special, like it's gonna be something different.
It's funny because my friend Greg, blessed assistant, he said who's on Alexandria and a couple of the other albums.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
I
yeah.
reviewed his project with Al Patron, I think last
Oh,
episode.
that's dope.
Really,
Yeah,
real
yeah.
interesting,
I
man.
saw, I saw that on Twitter. Yeah, that's dope. That's awesome that you guys are talking. I love that. But he had mentioned that before Kali Yuga dropped, that he had had a dream about it or something because I was talking about it so much. Like it is somehow like seeped into his like unconscious. That kind of drop and lead up to the album definitely helped, where people had that sort of expectation. And not to say it affected everyone that strongly, obviously, but there definitely were more people who were just like, yeah, they're talking about it a lot. Like, so I think that element of it does help. I think to a degree, like I've kind of found myself that I don't really like doing too much of that shit though. Like, like this is probably the last interview I'm doing in, a little bit of time. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have the stomach to like talk to like every single person that wants to theoretically talk. So like, me and Dano talk, and then like a month later, I'm like, okay, I could, do another one of these or something like that. Some people are going to go on like every, you know what I mean? They're going to go on every, radio show, every whatever, do a million videos, album trailers, this, that, or the other thing. And like, I definitely want to incorporate more of that. But I think I don't see myself really as the artist that's going to go too crazy on that. But, maybe that'll change though. I could see that changing as time goes on. And it's more about creating like, because when I think about following this up, I definitely do think that the rollout has to be part of it. So, it's a little bit of each where, I really like the off the cuff, just kind of like Daniel Johnston-esque, like just putting shit out without really a care in the world. But then at the same time, when I look at the results of what each one of those drops does, like I think cumulatively, the run definitely helped and definitely got a lot more people aware. But like, as far as like mileage per album, like did I get as much as I could have out of each album? Like, definitely not. Like, I feel like a lot of those albums have, there's a lot more potential in them for promotion and what could have been, I guess. So that's to a degree unfortunate, from a perspective of a business perspective, I guess, but just from a music perspective, I don't really care that much. It's just like,
Yeah, and I think
like,
I think it's all about authenticity. At the end of the day, like if it's pretty clear to the audience if someone's promoting an album like in a way where you can just tell like they're just forcing it and all that. So whether you go really hard on it, some people it's just so natural for them to just be so on social media creating, like you said, trailers and all that. So it's all about authenticity. I think people responded well overall as you described to the run. So I think you definitely made
yeah,
it.
that was a good, it was a good medium ground. I mean, we did the CDs, that was good. I mean, I'd like to do more of that in the future.
Time tested, the spark it never left us. Excavated, esoteric, the message inside a message. Layman, but I speak like a cleric. Second Vatican, ecumenical to all dogma antithetical.
What would be like one thing or a couple things you want people generally to take from your music? Like, is it like a feeling, a specific feeling? Is it like the sense of like understanding more about spirituality and uh, religion or philosophy? Like, what would be like something you'd love if people grabbed from your music after listening to it?
I mean, I guess, I don't know. I'm not trying to like, convert people or something.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't really, I guess, to some degree, I don't, if it's just entertainment. I mean, if you're entertained, if you're, if you get, some stuff you want to look up and learn more about, that's cool. If you, somehow are able to get some emotion out of it, if it gets someone through a tough time or something, I mean, that's a little cliche, but, obviously if it does help anyone in that kind of way, like that's, appreciated. And, just, I'm lucky to be able to do so. because I know a lot of music helps me through that. So, to create that for someone else is dope. But, I don't think I'm too much specific that I really have a message that I'm trying to get across necessarily beyond what's just said in the, I don't know if I have anything that's like, people got to get this one thing or whatever. Like you said, like when you said it in one of the reviews, like just like the way, if it makes you think in a certain way, that's what I'm trying to do more than anything else. I'd rather activate your own mind in a sense.
That's a good way of putting it. That's what it does.
Something to have like something that I'm like, oh, this is what I because even a lot of things that I'm saying, I don't know how much I even believe them or don't believe them. Like especially like in stuff like Sophia Perennis, like you talk a lot about like evolution and shit like that. And I'm like, I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
That presents that
gets the
one
conversation going.
Thing. It that presents one thing, and then in another album, I might present something that a point of view that's completely counter to that. So it's because a lot of things live in a lot of different, a lot of emotions, a lot of thoughts, philosophies, and I feel like that we're so conflicted in a lot of ways, and so our thoughts are so, or our belief systems are very contradictory.
Mm-hmm.
So if somehow the music makes you kind of explore that or explore something within yourself, then that I think is more valuable than saying, oh yeah, because I really don't, none of the songs really have any particular kind of message. I don't think, like, I'm not like trying to be, you know what I mean? It's not like, it's like some songs I feel like have a very strong, like, this is what they're trying to tell you.
It's like
But it's like, I don't know, that's not generally something I try to do too much.
No, I think that's kind of how I feel as well when I listen to your music. I have one last question before I wanted to just kind of wrap with like some quick kind of speed round kind of questions. I know in speaking with you before, and you've mentioned it many times on like your Twitter and things like that. On that really beautiful, and I genuinely mean stress to those who haven't listened to this album, the beautiful closing track on Dispatches from the Kali Yuga, 97 Canibus. You're obviously referencing the intelligent, gifted lyricist from the Bronx in Canibus. So could you speak to his influence that he had on your music, as well as if and there's any other key influences on your music that you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, Canibus is dope, man. I wanted to get him on that track, so that's kind of what spurred that title. I was going on a big Canibus listening spree, and especially some of his other albums. 97 was obviously his like big run with features and all that, but like even some of his like later stuff, like I didn't even know he had a whole album with like Bronze Nazareth. So like
you showed me that album. I didn't even know it existed. It's actually pretty dope.
And it's kind of like one of those things that I felt bad because I'm just like, shit, like, I don't know if the entire thing's like my favorite thing in the world, but like, there's certain tracks on that are among like some of my favorite tracks of his. And it's like, anyway, I don't know if I had a major point on that, but just check out that album, I guess. It's 50, because like there's a lot of good shit on there. And his album was Stoop. That was probably the most influential in me.
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
Lyrical too, that song. Oh my god, like shit like that. Like that definitely influenced me a lot at the time, and just the idea of like rhyming for that long and just spitting this bar after bar after bar, and not really worrying too much about the chorus, not whatever. And I feel like that album was also in the sense that in a lot of his previous works, it was kind of more about like him trying to find a home in the mainstream. Like he would have certain songs that are clearly like, going towards more of a mainstream audience, or at least like trying to. I don't think that, but it's kind of one of those things where I feel like that album was just the complete, brushing off of any thought of being mainstream and just being like, okay, like, just, I think, the way it was made is just he gave the vocals and then Stoop, did his thing on them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and crafted the songs. And, Stoop, obviously, coming from like Jedi Mind Tricks, he didn't really give a shit about trying to appeal to like a mainstream audience. So I feel like that's where Canibus was like most at home, like just letting him be completely, himself, as eccentric and, as like, make the bars like whatever you want and, make the beats to match. So, that element definitely influenced me besides just his own, lyrical ability and stuff. like just the fact of like that album being like, okay, like let me just make something that's completely in its own chamber, and not really worrying about the amount of appeal or this, that, or the other thing.
Yeah, and I think it also speaks to the stoop influence and the stoop inclusion in that story is that it really speaks to how important and how different it can be if the producer is kind of on the same page. Because, like you said, I think yeah, he was not like trying to make like club hits, but he was trying to be like the mainstream lyricist, the mainstream lyrical guy, and it just the production he was given, I found a lot of times earlier in his career, just it didn't do his justice. It wasn't like it didn't align with the subject matter, I find. Whereas this is just so eccentric, matching it with all these like crazy Spanish music. I don't really know,
Yeah,
Latin
just at
music.
the
A lot of
time, yeah.
it's just
At the
it that
time,
and
it was
like
just it was
yeah,
go
and
on.
like I feel like it reminds me of like or reminds me, but it's very reminiscent of how you and August are, and that August is I find so similarly he's just on the same page. I find like he doesn't need to necessarily like again but like how aligned he is like with all like the lyrics and understanding all the same content, but just the soundscape is so fitting for what you're saying. It just sounds equally as climactic, epic, dystopian, whatever you want to say. Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's
whatever
why
it is at the time.
so much success.
Yeah, August beat Thales, like there's just like different kinds, I guess, and each one has a different feeling, I guess. So there's just whenever you get into that, like he just is able to create like a certain beat that like matches my like inner landscape at the
Mhm.
time, and it's like to me that's like this the strongest thing about our working relationship and our collaboration, where it's just you know not a lot of producers. I mean, even like I'll work with a lot of producers, and I mean, I definitely am working with more people this year. So there'll definitely be some more outside collaborations as well. But at the same time, like just from a consistency basis, and just like there's not many producers that could capture that have something that's so perfectly aligned with what I'm feeling at the time, that just makes me just kind of want to write or like need to write. So that's you know, shout out to August.
Okay. So I now want to just wrap with just some quick fire questions. Like feel free to like say you don't have an answer, but I feel like you'll probably have an answer to most of these. So first questions like what is in your opinion the best Woo solo project?
Liquid Swords. That's my
Liquid
favorite.
Swords. I thought you were gonna say that. Yeah. I'd say for
Yeah.
me it's Liquid Swords or Cuban Links, but I go for Cuban Links
I mean,
usually.
to me, they're equal. They're equal to me. They're equally good. I just, that's
Liquid
just
Sword is more
just
focused on the rhymes, like it's Jizza, that's his style. It's just I think slightly more like a lyrical focus on that, less of the production's a little more minimal, which I feel like would fit with what you
yeah. I
like
mean,
there.
it's definitely a bigger influence to me than I mean, both are tremendous. So I mean, to me,
Yeah.
like I said, they're to me. I'd give them both tens. So at that point, it's just kind of like, what do you prefer? And it's
Mhm.
like that just happens to be what I prefer. But it's by a pretty thin margin.
Yeah. What is the best project that you didn't make, so not related to you, not involved with you, that you heard in 2020?
Sleep shit is dope. Love sleep shit. I mean, I was on that shit.
Are you
Vic
talking about
Spencer in
Routes?
August. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
on that. So I
that's
guess
a
it
dope
can't.
project. I'm actually gonna
Yeah,
check. I'm gonna review that next episode, I think. Yeah.
yeah, I like that album. Vic's album. I know I'm gonna be forgetting a lot of people. The Arm& and Hammer Shrines. That shit was incredible. What else? I mean, pretty much all the shit in your. I mean, all the things you listed in your top albums. Fat Boy Sharif, his album was fucking crazy. I
Oh
love that.
yeah.
Love that album. I know you're talking about that one a lot, which I'm glad it's getting to shine there too, because that's crazy. Just all the shit my friends are making. Yeah, she put out some dope shit. Just all the people I'm working with are I don't know. They're all putting out a lot of heat.
Yeah. Yeah. What's a rapper that you like that you or maybe just let's say an artist in general, maybe if it's easier. What's an artist that you really like that you think people wouldn't expect you'd like?
I've been listening to more country music lately. I like some
Oh.
country. I've been getting into some of that, so maybe
Do you like Sturgill Simpson?
Pal Glazer.
Do you like Sturgill Simpson or know who he is?
I don't think I know. I don't think I know him.
Oh, he's like outlaw country. He's definitely like pretty popular. Like I've actually seen him live. He's
Okay.
really dope. It's very like, I mean, I can't say like I'm super well versed, but it's kind of like the outlaw country style. Very good voice. But it's more like, yeah, like the outlaw country style. It's not bro country or anything like that.
I'm not versed at all. I'm really just starting to discover that, and you know, I'm getting a little into it. And then Hump Jones, he sent me like a shit kicking country mix. You know, so he sent me like 20 country tracks. So I've been playing those and getting into some of those artists, and you know, there's definitely some good shit out there. And it surprised me. I mean, I don't know why I was so surprised, but just like the musicianship, I guess, in some of those songs, a little bit like it's a little bit richer than I expected. Like I kind of expected like a motherfucker on like a banjo or something. I don't know why, but you know, or just like your super poppy like shit that you have today.
Yeah, that's like genuinely like the worst genre of music in my opinion. Like,
yeah, I mean that's why people will say like, oh, I don't, I listen to everything but country. Like people say, but
yeah, it's because of the radio, man.
That's a stupid thing. I mean, that's as dumb as saying, oh, I listen to everything but rap or something. I mean,
and it's honestly the same thing. It's the same thing. Rap's just kind of, I feel like mainstream rap has recovered from, at least from a mainstream perspective, it recovered from the early mid 2000s where it was really just like the most generic like commercial stuff. But I feel like the mainstream rap, even on the radio, is a lot, I find, my opinion, like just better, more lyrical, more substantive. So that kind of refrain isn't as common. But yeah, it's the same idea. It's like, yeah, okay, you don't like Lil Jon. That isn't what rap is only if you don't like crunk music. Like, stop. Like, there's so many other artists just like in country too.
Style.
Yeah.
So that definitely is something I've been getting into more and wanna dig a little deeper because especially like living out in the country, I'm just like, yeah, this kind of fits the scenery a bit.
Yeah. So. Okay, that's interesting. Didn't expect that. What's a producer you'd love to work with but you haven't had the chance to as of yet?
I don't know what I'm blanking. I am working with a couple people I've really wanted to work with. So I could say that. Like we got a couple. I got a couple joints in the stash with Messiah Music.
Oh,
so I'm excited about that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, me and Ed Glorious, we got a couple things going. And that's all. A lot of that's for the Watchers project. With it's like a group project that I've talked a little bit about on Twitter. Mm-hmm. So so that I'm definitely working with some other people as well. Fleetwood, he's in the group I've worked a lot with. So he's a new producer I'm working with, Fleetwood DeVille, and his shit's fucking incredible. And I have some of my best rhymes to some of his beats. So, and that's all, like, again, all for that. Yeah, as far as, I don't know. I mean, there are like a lot of bigger names, like, obviously like Alchemist, shit like that. Like, like Madlib, obviously. But like, there are also a lot of people in the underground too that I'd like to work with. But at the same time, I also like want to keep do it. Like, I don't know, when it comes to like the music I want to make, I generally prefer keeping it, close to home.
Yeah.
So I mean, mainly the producers I'm working with are either the people in the Watchers, a couple other people outside of that. And then August, obviously, and then also I'd like to do maybe a self-produced project.
Yeah, so I would. Like, I've been starting to get much more into your production work, and it's definitely very impressive. One producer I'd like to speak into existence. It's Preservation. I feel like listening to a lot of his music recently, his sound.
That I should have that blanked on him, dude. That's I already got the fucking thing. I already got the thing because you have ice and you have preservation, so the whole thing would be cryopreservation.
Oh, so
shit!
It's like,
yeah, that's got it. Especially if Sleep was on that, because on a Sleep's album I was like, yo, it's cryopreservation, ice and sleep. So like, if you had all of us together on something, yeah, that would be fucking just ridiculous.
Okay, well let's hope for that then. Let's hope for that.
Yeah, preservation. He follows me on Twitter, so that's the first.
That's
You
the
know,
first step.
at least
That's the first step. I
he's
know you're
heard me at
building a
least.
cred here, so like I wouldn't be surprised to see that in 2021. I would not be surprised at all. What's like one thing that kind of like the COVID pandemic, but just like 2020, like what was something you learned about yourself or learned about the world that like you didn't know going into 2020?
Learned about the world. Um,
Or just in general, like I don't know.
I don't know. I
Any
don't know.
kind of lesson.
Yeah, I mean, not that I haven't learned. I mean, it's just kind of. I feel like 2020 was just like a culmination of like what I've felt about the world, and then it's
Right.
got, you know, this is like a manifestation of like clearly like some of the worst, you know, shit. I feel like.
Mhm.
So that as far as myself, well, I got you know, just moving out completely on my own. You know, living alone. I like that. I mean, not that I didn't know I would like that, but you know, that's just definitely just learning how to just, you know, be in more solitude and not relying on other people and, you know, other people's companionship and company and stuff. I guess that's something that, you know, you have to deal with when you're, you know, don't have too many people around.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I guess I'd say maybe that.
Okay.
But I still talk to so many people on a daily basis too, that sometimes, you know, it's because for work I'm always talking to people, and then, you know, music wise I'm always working with so many different artists that, you know, people are always sending tracks and whatnot.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's like I feel I feel like a lot of people learned stuff about being on their own this year. It's definitely is a good there's some good learning to have from there. A lot of self-awareness, self-understanding, I think is always a positive. Okay, so my last question here is what does 2021 have in store for you? What do you got planned?
Yeah, so we got the Watchers, that album. That's the main thing I've been working on. Me and August, we're always working. Me and Scorsese, we have our album. That one, you know, I got to figure out with his record label, he's subordinate, what we want to do with that and how we're going to finish it.
Mhm.
But, you know, I know he would want that to be finished and out there. So, you know, that's something we've been working on for a little while. So that's definitely something. And then a lot of production with people. I mean, I got the Mantis albums dropping, then $2 just dropped, $2 Will just dropped something.
Mhm.
Blood Blixing dropped an album with my production. 8 Bizza, he's dropping stuff on my production. I mean, a lot of people are, you know, I've sent beats out for a while. So, you know, I think some of those will start to, you know, come to fruition from all the people I've sent stuff to. But probably laying low a little bit on that. You know, I mean, definitely some drops, but not quite as numerous. The Watchers, that's going to be the main course probably. Most of my recordings been on that. You know, I don't know, who knows. You know, when the time strikes, you know, if I want to make an album, I'll make an album and drop something. So I'm sure there might be more that I'm saying now. But yeah, I definitely want to take the time to work on some of these other things too, like with the, you know, TV show, other scripts, my book. I really want to finish my book. That's like something
Mhm.
that's kind of eating at me, and I feel like it's a little tough to do both. So I'm definitely, you know, figuring out if I have to make that more of a main priority, because
Yeah.
it's something that's like just hanging over my head, and I need to, you know, I need to finish that.
Yeah, at the end of the day though, like you've had, like you said, so much music has come out that you have given people more than enough to chew on if you don't release for a year, you that's what, 5 projects per year at that point your average is, plus that doesn't even count any of your production and your features, so I think people will be just fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there'll still be stuff. There'll be stuff like, you know, like I said, like these things are coming. So, you know, there'll be multiple projects. It's not going to be quite as much of a flood, but, you know, there'll be music, and I think, you know, the projects are really dope in and of themselves. So I think I think people will be happy with those. So, you know, just bear with me, I guess, and, you know, try to appreciate each project, because you're not going to get, you know, 12 of them most likely.
Yeah, yeah. All right, man. I that's all I had to talk about, all I was planning on. This has been a fantastic discussion. Super thankful that you jumped on the show, and I just want to thank you again. Love what you're doing, and I'm so excited to see what you got coming up for us in the future.
Hey, appreciate that, man. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, I'm going to leave it there. So, yeah, thank you again. And we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Peace, man.
Peace.
Be well.
There's some shit you might have to rewind. You might have to hit the books to reference half of the lines. You might have to live in the mountains for like half of your life, or sit in monastery, contemplate the passion of Christ.
So this concludes today's episode of the Rap Music Plug podcast presented by QLC TV. I hope this episode gave you some fresh new perspectives on the latest rap releases, as well as a recommendation for the next great rap record to add to your collection. But now that I've spoken, it's your turn to have your voice heard. So let's stay in touch. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Rohview, ROHVIEW, to connect with me on a personal level, where you'll be able to interact with my thoughts and perspectives on music, surely, but also on politics and sports as well. If you're an artist who wants to get their new song or album reviewed on the show, hit me up via email at qlctv.podcast@gmail.com or just send me a DM on Twitter or Instagram. I would love to give you public feedback through a review or private feedback if that's what you'd prefer. I would love to be a part of helping you grow as an artist. For exclusive content and updates related to the show, follow the Rap Music Plug podcast on Facebook. You can find all of this information along with exclusive playlists created by myself by clicking the link that's in the episode's notes. So that's all for today. Talk to you soon.